So, whatever happened to the incredible 25-foot monster of the deep, the shark, or sharks from the classic 1975 summer blockbuster Jaws? Let's find out.
Movies, music, and monsters.
Hey guys, Dan Monroe here talking about movies, music, and monsters. Oh man, Jaws, 1975's blockbuster film from Steven Spielberg and Universal Studios, often referred to as the very first summer blockbuster of all time, a film that literally kept people out of the water for years, and believe me, there is a huge selection of outstanding videos already out there right here on YouTube going into extreme deep dives on the film itself. But today, I just want to primarily focus on a brief history of the film and some of the super cool Jaws props. So grab your harpoon gun, your beaches closed sign, and your favorite exploding shark with a bucket of stale popcorn, and let's dive in.
Here lies the body of Mary Lee, died at the age of 103.
Quick shout out to Tony and Andrew, super cool kids and fans of the show from the Philippines. So, hey guys, thanks so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. Now, for those of you who've been living under an asteroid for the past 48 years, Jaws is essentially the story of a great white shark enjoying a human buffet off the shores of Amity Island, eventually being hunted by a local sheriff, a shark expert, and an overly colorful Captain Ahab character named Quint. Now, a little history on the origin of this film based on the 1974 novel by Peter Benchley, which Universal Studio producers Richard Zanuck and David Brown both independently heard about and, more importantly, both believed was, and I quote, the most exciting thing they had ever read. So, they purchased the film rights to the book in 1973, which was just prior to the actual book's publication release, for about $175,000. Several different directors were considered for this film, including veteran filmmaker John Sturges and Dick Richards. However, it was a 26-year-old Steven Spielberg who very much wanted this job and had just finished his first theatrical film for Zanuck and Brown, the Sugarland Express. So, that was it. The producers signed Steven Spielberg to direct in June of 1973. Jaws was given an estimated budget of $3.5 million and a shooting schedule of 55 days. Principal photography was set to begin in May of 1974, and Universal Studios really wanted the project in the can by the end of June. Yeah, okay, boy, little did they know. Peter Benchley, the guy who wrote the novel, was brought on board to write the first draft of the screenplay. He actually ended up writing, I think, 3 different drafts before the script was turned over to other writers, but he did at least get a small cameo in the film, on screen as a news reporter, which is pretty cool. The cast of this film was nothing less than cinematic brilliance, with Roy Scheider, Richard Dreyfuss, Lorraine Gary, Murray Hamilton, and the brilliant yet somewhat problematic Shakespearean actor Robert Shaw, but more on that later. Interesting, the role of Chief Brody was originally offered to Robert Duvall, but Duvall turned it down because he wanted to play the Quint character. And get this, Charlton Heston himself expressed a desire to play Martin Brody, but Spielberg felt that Heston's on-screen persona would just be so overwhelmingly huge that the audiences just wouldn't buy the fact that he was, in reality, just a modest community police chief. I mean, come on though, wouldn't that have been interesting? Believe it or not, Spielberg actually wanted anybody but Richard Dreyfuss for the role of Hooper, initially approaching Jon Voight, Timothy Bottoms, Joel Grey, even Jeff Bridges, but it was George Lucas who suggested that Spielberg take a look at Richard Dreyfuss, who he had previously directed in American Graffiti.
Here's prefers to swim in with bow-legged women.
Robert Shaw was, of course, brilliant in his outstanding portrayal of Quint, but did create quite a few issues on set with just about everybody. He tormented Richard Dreyfuss mercilessly throughout the course of the film, basically just picking on him, telling him he was fat and out of shape and a terrible actor.
He was the kindest, gentlest, funniest guy you ever met. Then we'd walk to the set, and on the way to the set, he was possessed by some evil troll who would then make me his victim. I was his victim. He was an enormous personality, and he radiated it.
Robert Shaw had a tendency to, shall we say, hit the bottle quite a bit. But in the end, his portrayal of that character, Quint, is probably one of my all-time favorite characters of any film in any genre to this day. You all know me. You know how I earn a living. I'll catch this bird. Oh yeah, ain't gonna be easy.
Bad fish.
This shark, swallow you whole.
A little chewing, a little tenderizing.
Down you go. Principal photography for Jaws began on May 2nd, 1974 on the island of Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. This location was carefully picked because they not only needed a lower middle class type appearance to the town, but more importantly because the ocean surrounding the island had a sandy bottom which never really dropped below like 35 feet near the shore, which allowed for the mechanical sharks to operate without seeing much of the land in the background. You know, the holidays are a time for special traditions, and I've been cranking out so many videos lately that it just occurred to me that we're already halfway through freaking December, and that means Christmas is coming quite rapidly, I might add. And you know, it reminds me of when I was a kid. One of my favorite family traditions was setting up the old slide projector and screen in the middle of the living room, turning off the lights, and looking at old family photos. Such a great holiday family memory, and it's something that you really can enjoy today with Aura frames. And now trust me, these are not the digital frames you remember from the early 2000s. There's no USB, no SD cards. Believe it or not, it's all done through Wi-Fi with their best-selling digital frame called Carver Matte Frames, which have a beautiful 10.1-inch frame, a 1280 by 800 high-definition display. You can add photos and videos with the free app, a slideshow or video, pretty much anything you want. Super cool, super fun, and a super great way to share not only holiday memories, but really any memories. And better yet, Aura has free unlimited storage, one of the many reasons this is the best digital picture frame you can buy. So do yourself a favor and make Christmas shopping easy. Save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off their best-selling Carver matte frames by using the promo code DAN at checkout. That's Aura, A-U-R-A frames.com. Promo code DAN. This is a deal exclusively only to you guys, so get yours now in time for the holidays. The link is in the description. And now, back to Jaws. Interesting tidbit. Spielberg asked the art department to specifically avoid the color red in either the scenery or the wardrobe so that the blood from the shark attacks would be the only red element on film and cause a bigger shock for the audience. And boy, did it ever. Okay, the shark, or sharks. As crazy as this sounds, the producers initially wanted to train a real great white shark to, I guess, act in the film, but quickly realized this was not only ridiculous but impossible. So, 3 full-size pneumatically powered shark props were created for the production, the first being a full-body prop that had its complete underside belly section missing that was towed along the surface of the water with a 300-foot line, a second full-size shark with its left side open, exposing the pneumatic structure to be filmed only from the right side, and its exact opposite, a third full-size shark with its right side open to be filmed only from the left side. I wouldn't really call it a shark prop, but the production team also created what I like to call the sled shark, which was basically nothing more than fins being pulled along the surface of the water with no actual shark body attached. The incredible sharks were designed by art director and production designer Joe Alves, with as many as 40 effects technicians working on the sharks, supervised by mechanical effects expert Bob Matty, the brilliant special effects guy who created the giant squid for 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. So, the sharks, lovingly named Bruce after Steven Spielberg's lawyer, were thrown on trucks and transported out to the shooting location, and movie history was about to be made until...
The shark is not working. Repeat, the shark is not working.
So, apparently, all of these mechanical sharks worked perfectly fine on land, but as soon as they hit the salt water off the coast of Martha's Vineyard, well, everything literally and figuratively just stopped working, which, to me, was the best thing that could have possibly happened to this film. I mean, yeah, it set the production budget way over the top and set back the shooting schedule by months, but since the shark didn't work, they needed to create other ways to let you know the shark was there. The music, the barrels, and to me, less is more, and I honestly believe that if the shark actually worked the whole time and we saw it on screen constantly, the film wouldn't have been nearly as successful or suspenseful as it was, but that's just my opinion.
Well, the first mistake with the shark was they built it for fresh water. Now, they all knew we were going to the Atlantic Ocean, but for some reason they built it for fresh water. And we had at least 20 boats of tourists who had gathered around an area to watch the shark work. The shark came up tail first. It was a total disaster.
They did, however, get the sharks to eventually work, and filming was completed way over schedule and way over budget. Lots of pissed off studio executives and cast members, but hey, that's Hollywood.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
The boat! The Orca was so freaking cool. Production designer Joe Alves and his team brought to life not one, but 2 full-size versions of the Orca for the film. The first being an actual boat, built from an existing boat called the Warlock, which was a lobster boat before it was transformed into the Orca, and the second, constructed mainly of fiberglass and dubbed the Orca 2, had no motor and was basically designed to just sink on command to film the conclusion of the movie. Check out this super cool shot of both the Orca and the Orca 2 together. Just awesome. The amazing and memorable score to this film, once again composed by the incredible John Williams, earned him not only an Academy Award, but was later ranked as the 6th greatest score ever created by the American Film Institute. Those 2 repeating notes, without which, like most scores by John Williams, the films would be nowhere near as memorable. I mean, try watching Jaws with the sound turned down sometime. No music? Doesn't work. Jaws opened in theaters on June 20th, 1975 on only 409 screens across the U.S., originally planned for over 900 theaters, but the number was cut down by Universal chairman Lew Wasserman because he wanted the movie to run all summer long. He didn't want the film to be completely accessible. He wanted people to have to get in their cars and drive to another town to see the film, creating intrigue, mystery, and the very first summer blockbuster in Hollywood history. Okay, but whatever happened to all the super cool costumes, sets, and props from the film? Well, let's see. Ben Gardner's head is still around. Actually, there were two of them created for the film, one currently owned by Steven Spielberg and the other by Greg Nicotero. Here's an actual Jaws tooth from one of the screen-used sharks, Hooper's goggles that he wore in the cage underwater at the end of the film. Here's Quint's harpoon gun that we saw quite a bit in the film while trying to tie on another barrel. Speaking of barrels, here's Hooper's beacon tracker that was tied to the first barrel of the film, and this is super cool. This is the actual buoy seen at the beginning of the film. We know this is it because there was only one built for the production. Super cool. This is Quint's fighting chair along with his fishing reel from the film, as clearly seen here in Jim Beller's incredible book on Jaws, which we'll talk about in just a few minutes. This is unbelievable. Jim Beller posing with the 6-foot-long original mold that was used to create the only miniature in the film, the shark that sank at the end of the movie after being blown up by Chief Brody. Now, these particular fins are not from the original Jaws, but they are Jaws-related. These are the fins used in Jaws 3, or 3D, originally purchased by Charlie Sheen until he realized it was just too big to display in his house, so he donated it to the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures in Los Angeles, winning. However, this is the original toe fin from Jaws, which coincidentally was also used in Jaws 2 for the water skiing attack. Now, the original Hero Orca boat was shipped back to Hollywood after filming was completed and sold to a special effects technician in Los Angeles for only $13,000. That is until the studio suddenly realized this film was going to be an enormous blockbuster, so Universal bought the boat back from the guy for about 10 times what they sold it for and put it in the Jaws section of their backlot tour, where Steven Spielberg himself would often go to visit the boat just to reminisce about his early career and pondering future projects, until one day Steven Spielberg went down to visit the Orca and it was gone. Half upset and half furious, he went to find out what happened to it and was told, "Gee, sorry, Steven, we just threw it out." Can you freaking imagine?
And I called up the head of the back lot and I said, "What happened to the Orca?" He said, "Well, it was just rotting there, so we just took an axe and took a couple of chainsaws and we cut it up for timber and we shipped it out." And I went nuts. I feel very bad about all the things I said to that poor man who took my phone call.
Now, as far as the fate of the Orca 2, the non-functional sinking prop that we saw at the end of the film, well, this boat stayed on Martha's Vineyard on the private property of Lynn and Susan Murphy. It just basically sat there, rotting for years and years. Enthusiastic Jaws fans would often sneak onto the property to get photos with the boat and, unfortunately, take souvenirs from the prop. So eventually, a combination of the weather and ambitious prop collectors saw this famous piece of movie history essentially just disappear. Jim Beller, who is to this day the world's largest collector of Jaws memorabilia, does have a small portion of the bottom hull of the Orca 2 that was sold to him directly from the Murphy family, so at least a little bit of this prop does still survive to this day, and that is super cool. Which reminds me, if you want to check out some of Jim Beller's unbelievable collection of Jaws memorabilia, just head over to jawscollector.com, and also the book he wrote with co-author Matt Taylor called Jaws Memories from Martha's Vineyard. Awesome book with amazing photos, so check those out. Links to both are in the description. Okay, the sharks. Well, I've got some bad news and some good news. After filming was completed, the original full-size 25-foot sharks were simply returned to Universal. stored in the back lot and simply rotted away over the years and thrown out. I mean, what in the world? I don't know. I don't get it. But remember, this was a different time with limited studio space on studio lots. So I guess I get it. I don't know. I guess. I don't know. Here's a sad photo. Director Fellini analyzing one of the sharks at the Universal backlot just prior to these masterpieces completely deteriorating. Now, for the good news, back in 1975, there was another casting made from the original molds of the shark that was used for photo opportunities at the Universal Studios tour. If you were lucky, you might have had your picture taken with this super cool shark when you were a kid. Well, in the mid-1990s, I think, they took it down and retired it to a junkyard until in 2018, and this is super cool. The shark was rescued and restored over a 7-month period by Greg Nicotero, along with a dedicated team of like 9 people, painstakingly stripping off years of multiple layers of paint, repairing all the cracks in the fiberglass. Greg even had castings of the original teeth that were given to him by production designer Joe Alves, everyone working together to restore this shark to its absolute glory, which now has a new home at the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures in Los Angeles. And just look at this beauty, the last remaining icon of this unbelievably groundbreaking cinematic masterpiece. I mean, come on, guys. How cool is that? Now, as far as sequels, reboots, and reimaginings, well, we certainly got a whole frickin' pile of those now, didn't we? I mean, Jaws 2 wasn't terrible. It was cool to see Roy Scheider back on screen again. The script was okay. I don't know. It was fine.
I didn't have any choice. I was contracted. It was not my choice. Although I thought it was a reputable film. The only thing that's hard to believe is the shark was still looking for me.
Jaws 3, or Jaws 3D, whichever, was about what you'd expect. Jaws 4: The Revenge, I literally have no comment, but I'm sure there's people out there who really like that film, and if you do, that's awesome. To commemorate the studio's 100th anniversary, Universal released a completely digitally remastered and, more importantly, restored version of Jaws on Blu-ray in 2012 with a brand new 7.1 surround sound mix and 4 hours of additional features. Steven Spielberg himself worked with Universal's in-house archives and restoration team on this new print directly from the original film negatives. And quite frankly, if you've never seen this version of Jaws, it's monstrously gorgeous, probably better than what you saw in theaters back in 1975. Jaws was not only a monumental Hollywood blockbuster loved to this day by millions of film enthusiasts, but also part of our American filmmaking heritage, a milestone of practical special effects that hold up still to this day, paving the way for other great giant monster movies through the 80s and 90s, including Lake Placid, Alligator, Anaconda, Piranha, Orca, Blood Beach, Barracuda, and so many more. We could be here all day, but that, my friends, is the topic of another video. I really hope you guys enjoyed that deep dive all about what happened to the props from Jaws, and if you did and you like this kind of stuff, please consider subscribing to the channel. I've got a whole bunch of new videos coming out really soon that I know you guys are just gonna dig. And please, feel free to stop back anytime as we together continue the conversation on movies, music, and monsters.
Movies, music, and monsters.